What's up, guys? How's it going? Got another stream. Two in one day. This one, obviously, the regularly scheduled Tuesday night hangout. The Ant-Man is in the house, Anthony DiBona, at DiBona NFL. You should already be following if you're not already. But lots to get into here. Anthony, it is, I would say normally off of a loss, this is kind of like the group therapy session. But in a strange, odd way, there's a lot of optimism. Even though, sure, no one's rooting for the Eagles to lose in the playoffs, but the most recent news, obviously, Kevin Patullo has metaphorically died, along with the Positivity Bunny, and you should show people the shirt that you have on because we can only see like the top half of it. But there you go. That's I think it's a one of one, isn't it? That's not like mass produced.
To my brother. Yeah, he last year he got me for Christmas. This was a Christmas gift. We saw him late because my parents were sick, then my kids were sick. We just couldn't get together till this past weekend. But my brother got me the Positivity Bunny deflated on a shirt. Last year he got me. It was a picture of Nick Sirianni from his Mount Union playing days, which I think I've shown Josh, but I haven't worn on the stream. So
yep.
My brother, who's a Giants fan, is always good to troll me with a T-shirt. Another story, real quick, is we went to the Eagles Vikings home opener a couple years ago. I believe it was 2023, I think, and he just came along because somebody else dropped out, and he had a hoodie on the entire time. We were driving there in the car. We get out of the car. We're about to walk into the link. He takes his hoodie off. It's a shirt with just my face from when I was crying when the Eagles won their first Super Bowl, just plastered over and over and over again all over the T-shirt. And so that he loves trolling me. Shout out to my brother John. But yeah, he's stuck with the Giants. Does. So he's you think we've got it bad? They've got it much worse.
That is true. Yep. A little matter of perspective, but appreciate you guys. Lots to get into. As I mentioned, make sure to drop a like for us if you haven't already. Hit the like button there. Helps out the algorithm. Also, if you want to, I'm still trying to make this thing happen. It might be a little bit more difficult, but trying to give away 2 tickets to the big game in Santa Clara. Unfortunately, the Eagles are obviously not going to be there. They couldn't even win the first playoff game, but you could still attend the big game if you can get signed up with Underdog. Help me get this. We're about 500 signups away. Just scan the QR code. All it takes is $5. Cup of coffee. Scan the QR code. Use code Philly Special. For Philly, you can even play the draft leagues. If you're as fortunate as Anthony is, you're going to make money every single week. But you may not. So
real quick, I have been. I'm not becoming a millionaire overnight. I'm not retiring off of this money.
Sure.
But you can enter. They have all different levels of entry fee. There's $3, $5, $10, $20, $50, however you feel comfortable. So like with that $5 play, you can enter a draft, and you can go by individual games. You can go by days. So I believe I played. It was a Saturday slate I played, and I ended up winning. So I mean, yeah, it's fun. You're really just drafting 6 players, 2 wide receivers, a running back, a quarterback, a flex, and a tight end, and from any of the teams that are available. And you do a draft with usually 4 people and put you against everybody else. It's really fun, especially with the regular fantasy football season being over. For only $5, and you get that promo on top of it, I would definitely recommend it for anybody. Even if you can't do the picks, the drafts are a lot of fun too.
There you go. $5. Scan the QR code. Link in the description. If you're on television, just scan the QR code. If you're on mobile, go down to the link in the description or the pinned comment there and get signed up. So we can make it happen. We'll do that by the conference championship, but I'll announce that if we can get there. So take advantage. Appreciate you guys. Like I say, lots to get into. A couple super chats here to get us started. Appreciate that from Brando with a 2. Thoughts on Mike McCarthy or I guess it in question mark, but Mike McCarthy, Kellen 2.0, go Birds. We're off and running.
Yeah, so for anybody that hasn't seen it, you haven't followed me on Twitter, or you don't check the PhillySpecialShow.com, you should head over there now while you're watching this or afterwards. I compiled what I think is the most comprehensive and detailed potential candidate list for the Eagles at offense coordinator. I listed 21 names. There's at least, I think, 2 paragraphs on each of those. So
yep.
I broken them into 3 categories, which is proven play callers, inexperienced gambles, and stable veterans. So Mike McCarthy is one of the guys that falls in that stable veteran category for me, because obviously he has a ton of experience as a head coach and designing an offense and calling plays. So I think he would make sense, but I think there are other, especially given how early the Eagles have kind of gotten a start in this process. I know people were worried that we haven't seen the news. Like you see Todd Monken and Cliff Kingsbury, all these other guys lining up interviews. And it's like, when are the Eagles going to announce this news? They're going to be late. They're going to miss out on some of these top guys. They did officially make the move today. So now there haven't been any outside coordinators that have signed with a new team. David Blau was the only guy, and he was an internal promotion in Washington. So everybody else, all these big names are still available. So the Eagles will and should be able to line up interviews with pretty much their pick of the litter. So I don't necessarily think Mike McCarthy would be high on that list, but there are a lot of intriguing names available.
Yeah, they can take their pick, which is one of the many, as you mentioned there, but one of the many good reasons for getting on the ball a little early, and if there's an optimism to be had for losing quickly. Qualified with the 2, Todd Monken thoughts. I like Todd Monken. That's my top pick. There's a lot of areas that you could go. So perspective wise, you could probably pick any offensive coordinator on probably the 21 that you mentioned. You could probably take any of those picks, and it would be better than Kevin Patullo. So it's a very low bar. But I would say just from, and I'll share like very detailed why in the video tomorrow, which I've already kind of prepped a lot of it. But I just, there's so much to like about Todd Monken, the way that he sets up the play calls, his scheme. We talked about this offline, but I think that there's also a lot of similarities. You can look at the Ravens roster and go, okay, a mobile quarterback. Now I know that Jalen was not running. They were not called plays to run. There was speculation. Is it Jalen not wanting to do that? We've gotten mixed reports. Jalen was asked directly, and he's like, I'll do whatever it takes to win. I don't know. He does look like he's shy to take off and run, but you look at Monken and what he did with Lamar Jackson, it was taking off, it was making sure to, try to balance those things, but he's familiar with a quarterback who can run. We're not saying that Jalen's a Lamar Jackson, but you can still capitalize. As we saw, you go empty. The Eagles just did not do that enough, and you can help with a running game. Same thing with the creativeness of a tight end. Now, granted, will Dallas Goedert be here? Who knows? But Monken has had Isaiah Likely, Dallas Goedert for the Eagles, but had Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers. So, I mean, I'm just saying there's a lot of creativity that you see within that. Has experience in the past with Georgia, with Tampa. He's had a number 1 ranked offense. He had a top 10 ranked offense in both years that he was with the Bucs. So he's got a proven track record. We're not talking about a guy who's, obviously like a KP, or even just a newer play caller. And then the other area that I would go to, I know that he's gotten some interview requests. Maybe there's a chance for him to be a head coach, but he does feel like one of those that there's a possibility of like, he just stays there for offensive coordinator for a little bit longer. You might have a little longer of a runway. And if we can do anything for continuity for Jalen and the step that he took for Lamar Jackson, he gave Lamar Jackson a whole lot of control with the offense, very different from Greg Roman, I think, was there previously before Monken, and it is like night and day difference. So if Jalen's able to see that, and hey, whatever you see on the field, react to it, change the play, you got other options, other reads there. Jalen didn't have that. We watch the film week in and week out, talk about it after the Eagles losses or even wins and go, well, what do you want Jalen to do, right? Like people want to knock him and say, oh, he's just mid, he can't do anything. Every quarterback has limitations, but you look at the film and say, this offense, especially this past year, gave Jalen hardly any outs. If the play wasn't run to perfection, the blocking didn't hold up to perfection, then where's he supposed to go with the football? Very rarely. Occasionally there would be times, sure, but very rarely was it like, I don't know what he's supposed to do. All the hitches are covered. They all knew what's coming. So for me, Todd Monken, long-winded answer there, but you can tell that that's my top choice.
Yeah, I know, and I feel like that kind of speaks to the class of available options at offensive coordinator, right? Because it feels like there's one side that's like totally convinced Todd Monken is the top choice, and there are other people that like love the idea of Cliff Kingsbury, or they love the idea of Mike McDaniel, or Brian Daboll, Kevin. Like there's just, like I said, I've made a list of 21 candidates. Granted, I kind of overcompensated because I just want to inform people. I want people to know. Maybe it's a name that'll be come up in a couple years, but just I'd rather give you too much information than leave somebody off the list, and then people are like, oh, who was that? Like I can say, listen, I told you about a little bit about this guy, and now he's an OC in 2026, 2027. Who knows? But like me personally, I sent out a long-winded tweet. I think it was my most recent tweet before the live stream tweet that I personally like Brian Daboll as a candidate. I think he has the experience with Nick Sirianni, and he has the experience working with Jalen Hurts. Granted, he benched him the year, but then there's also quotes from Jalen Hurts saying that like Brian Daboll was the one that really showed him how to play in an NFL offense and taught him how to read through progressions and all these different things. And he obviously worked with Saquon Barkley in New York, and I know he a little controversial his time in New York with the sideline blowups, and he went through coaches here and there and went through players and quarterbacks. But I also think he did some really good things offensively at times, and some people just head coach, like being a head coach is not for them. They're better off being an offense coordinator. And you saw what he did in Buffalo. He kind of helped Josh Allen early in his career become kind of the player that he's developed into today. So I think he's shown the willingness and ability to maximize a mobile quarterback skill set. He did it with Daniel Jones. He did it with Jackson Dart. Obviously, Josh Allen, like I mentioned. So, but Todd Monken is also a great choice, like you mentioned. What he's done in Baltimore was really impressive because they don't have the talent that the Eagles have. I know Lamar Jackson's a phenomenal quarterback. I would put him ahead of Jalen Hurts, but people thought Derrick Henry wasn't going to be the same running back when he left Tennessee, and somehow he's looked even better, right? And then Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, I don't think there's any argument between that duo and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, right? So I think he would be able to come in. You would see more of a vertical passing game, but mixed in with a really dynamic and kind of creative running game too, which is the complement that we didn't see this year. So I think I can honestly fall in love with pretty much any of these candidates. It's going to be very hard for the Eagles to upset me with whoever they hire because, like I mentioned, there are so many intriguing candidates. But it's going to be interesting to see what also happens on the staff beyond just offensive coordinator because I think there could be some changes there too.
Yeah, changes all around. Tons of those. And as you say, I'm in the same boat. Like you say, Brian Daboll, I could absolutely get behind that. I would be excited. I'd be like, let's go. Okay, maybe it's not my top pick, but I can 100% see that. I know. I think a few people were bringing this up in the comments from the live stream, the news of KP officially being fired, what Schefter said, but then the Eagles kind of walked it back on their
weird
post account. They've moved on or whatever the wording was exactly, but he hasn't been fired. He's just been demoted of sorts. He's still in the building as far as we know, but we'll see what they do there. But yeah, like if it's Daboll, the question was, yeah, but what about Saquon and the relationship there? It's not like we're hiring Joe Shane. If that was the case, then maybe we got some issues there, the way that one played out. But I think that there's still some respect for Daboll. As you mentioned there, I mean, you look at some of the mic'd up parts, you can make someone look great and you could make someone look terrible in all mic'd up clips, right? You're just picking clips and pieces and everything else. And now we love to troll Giants faithful. We love to troll the Giants. We love to troll really every team, but certainly teams within the division. So there is that out there. But I do believe from what I've seen, and even some of those mic'd up clips, Hard Knocks, everything else, from just an offensive standpoint and understanding the position and talking through a lot of those things, that Brian Daboll understands quite a bit. And you look at the breakdowns of what he's had with those quarterbacks at the draft. There was the draft footage of him kind of like calling plays and talking through it with different quarterbacks and potentials that they would be looking at in the draft. To have that in the building and the relationship, as you mentioned, with Hurts and some of the others there, that makes a whole lot of sense, and I would be excited about that. The question, still with a lot of these, though, is like, okay, but are we going to be here a year from now? Are we going to be here in the same scenario, right? Because if they do good, then they're probably hired, we would think, in the way that the modern NFL is. 1 year of success, you go back, maybe, but is it enough of teams have seen Brian Daboll as a head coach, and they're like, yeah, you know what, he's successful as an offensive coordinator. I don't know if I want that guy. I don't know if I want that guy in the building as the head coach.
I think that's another. I think that's something that you have to factor in. Also, I don't think the Eagles would mind taking a chance on one of these younger guys or a guy that they might lose in a year, like similar to what happened with Kellen Moore, because I think they went into that situation knowing that there was a very good chance that if they had a successful season, he was going to be gone, and they were very comfortable living in that situation. And I think they would do so again. But with a Todd Monken, with a Brian Daboll, I think those two guys, especially given Monken's age and given the fact that Daboll is coming off being, like, let's be honest, he was a failure as a head coach.
Yeah.
That I don't think you would have to worry about losing either one in 2027 to a head coaching gig, regardless of what the Eagles did, if they won the Super Bowl, if they went far in the playoffs, anything like that. So that's another thing that I think should be factored in, but I don't think it should be everything, right? Like if you think Mike McDaniel is the guy, but you might lose him in 2027, that shouldn't outweigh the fact that you might not lose somebody else that might be more stable. I think you go for the best candidate, the guy that you like the most. And they've shown interest in Cliff Kingsbury. They interviewed him before they hired Kellen Moore. They've showed interest in Gerard Johnson, who's another guy. He's the Texans quarterback coach before they hired Kellen Moore, I believe. Then Mike McDaniel and Todd Monken. They've shown interest in them going back several years, from previous regimes. So the Eagles have Kevin Stefanski. They obviously had the joint practices and stuff with them. So Mike Kafka played for the Eagles. Like there's a ton of ties to a lot of these guys. So it's going to be fun to see how this whole process plays out.
Yes, and that does bring it up to as I'm sharing here in the graphic, as people can see. But as far as the Josina Anderson's tweet that was about 30 minutes ago, League source said Cliff Kingsbury, runner-up, as we remember, and you're kind of referencing there too, runner-up when the team hired Kellen Moore, and Kevin Stefanski will get a, in quotes, real look, whatever that means, for the Eagles' offensive coordinator position, among other options, assuming head coach signings don't supersede the team's vacancy. Now, I don't doubt that that's legit, I guess, but the way that things are right now in the Eagles, it does feel like you could insert a lot of the 21 candidates that you had out there and say they'll get a, in quotes, real look, like whatever that means, right? Because it's like, I mean, why are they not going to? Now, it might be more legit. I could understand that. It does make sense for as far as Cliff Kingsbury goes, but I'm with you also of the sense of, look, as much as it's frustrating, and Jalen said this too, we got to buck the trend of, the big game and the wild card, the big game, the wild card. They're still making the playoffs. I agree. It's infuriating whenever it's like, are you kidding me? We come off of a Super Bowl appearance or a win, obviously, for last year, and then it goes back to the same part. But, I mean, if I was to poll the audience here in the chat, and I think if we're all being honest, if we knew it was going to be that case year in and year out, we would 100% say, fine, you know what? I'll just put up with it. Because if you're going to get a Super Bowl every other year or an appearance in a Super Bowl every other year, you know what? Fine. Well, it's frustrating. We'd love to have a dynasty. We'd love to have just a core group that stays there. But for some reason, this is where it's at. And I know that goes into also like, well, yeah, but what if they just fire Sirianni then? Because then you wouldn't have the problem maybe. Maybe you just have the play caller as the head coach. That's a whole other argument there. But so far, Sirianni seems incredibly likely that he's going to stick around. It would be an absolute shock that he does not, that he's not the head coach this year, especially him making the firing of KP.
That's what I was going to say. The fact that announcement was from Nick Sirianni, that pretty much puts to bed. I feel like that was the Eagles' way of saying, we're not firing Nick Sirianni. Like and we said this during the season, right? That if they were to have a 2023-esque collapse, that they're not going to fire Nick Sirianni. They're going to fire Kevin Patullo. Howie and Jeffrey Lurie, no matter how they're going to try and like make it look publicly, they're going to handpick the next OC.
Yep.
And then, which is similar to what happened in 2024, but they won a Super Bowl, right? But if in 2026 they fall flat on their face and they spiral out of control again, now in 2027, that's when you would entertain the idea of moving on from Nick Sirianni and things like that. So that I think them putting that statement out, specifically wording that it was from Nick Sirianni, I think that pretty much says that he'll be safe.
Yeah, and I agree. And just, and I'll get back to these other super chats too. So appreciate you guys. I'm not missing those. But just going on this topic here, you see the faces, the names there, Cliff Kingsbury, Kevin Stefanski. Both of those options, again, I could talk myself into all of them. Like you were saying, there's so many different candidates that they would hire, and you go, sure, yeah, you know what, I could see it. Now, those two options there, I'm okay with, but it does feel like Cliff Kingsbury is one of those that would be, if you have a successful year, very quickly taken off. Because I think that, and I believe that you made this tweet, or at least the first person to make this distinction, he probably learned his lesson from last year, like not striking while the iron's hot, because he was a hot commodity in terms of, hey, maybe he get a head coaching job, and he decided to stay in Washington, and it's crazy how quickly things can change. So if the Eagles were to, let's say, go back to the Super Bowl or make a really deep run in the NFC title game, he's probably going to, try to cash that in at that point. Maybe not, but it seems like that would be the case. Also, if you don't like the way that the Eagles play football right now, I'm saying just the vast majority, it would be better than KP, the sequencing would be better, all that other stuff. But in terms of the lack of motion, in terms of some of the lack of creativity and just like a Mike McDaniels, right? Like a comparison that way. It's not the case. You don't like them being in shotgun so many times and having kind of a couple basic formations that they run everything out of. That's going to be Cliff Kingsbury. So just like a forewarning, that's what you would get with a Cliff Kingsbury offense. We've seen it could be successful though, right? I mean, you just watch Washington that made the NFC title game. Now, this past year was a whole other story, and I think that all of us were saying, they're due for a lot of regression, or the vast majority. Some people were not buying that, but the vast majority, it's like, look, they got an old roster. They kind of went too heavily on the all-in portion. It's like, whoa, they're doing some things here that it just doesn't seem sustainable, and it played out that way. But Cliff Kingsbury is one that it wouldn't surprise me at all if they made that hire, because of all the things that I mentioned. It does not change a whole lot schematically of kind of the formations and how they like to play things for just the play style of the offense. Does that do enough? They got a lot of good players, and Cliff Kingsbury can certainly sequence things better. I think it's a possibility, but As we've said there, like there's other options. Brian Daboll, Monken, you can go down the list before I get to Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I think we talked so many times about Kingsbury, how like it seems like teams usually figure him out in the second half of seasons or in the second year of his tenure. But if you look at how he performed like individually against the Eagles with Vic Fangio over these last 2 seasons, they averaged close to like 24 points per game against the Eagles, which is pretty impressive compared
Yeah.
to what other teams average. And that's given Marcus Mariota playing in a couple of those games. Like, so, and obviously what he did with Jaden Daniels was very impressive. He really kind of maximized his skill set, simplified the game for him. And people like complain about Kingsbury's scheme where they say it's just too much shotgun. There's too many screens. It's basically like a screen or a deep shot. He likes to keep receivers on certain sides, but then we saw this season that Terry McLaurin moved around a little bit more this year when he was healthy. So he has shown some ability to kind of adapt and change things. So I think for the most part, you just need somebody to come in and have an established scheme that has had success in the NFL. You don't want to do another Kevin Patullo, which is why some of these inexperienced guys, while they might be enticing and like the big name hire or the hot hire to make, they might not want to go in that direction because they need somebody that they know, like a Kellen Moore, that has experience calling plays. They've had success maybe on multiple teams, which is what you could say with Kingsbury. So I don't know. It's tough because I know he has a bad rap because he could potentially leave and what happened as a head coach and what happened this year in Washington. But I also think given the circumstances with this cast of players in Philadelphia, I don't think any of these guys have worked with an offense as talented as the Eagles have right now. So I think just given their history, a lot of these guys they're all going to be improvements over Kevin Patullo and what we saw this season. It's just a matter of which direction the Eagles want to go. Do they want to go with a guy that's just going to be like, this is my offense. I don't care what Jalen Hurts says he wants to do or wants to scrap, because it felt like maybe that's why the offense got so simplified by Kevin Patullo. I mentioned it in my tweet where it almost felt like he was spineless at times, like he wouldn't want to push back against maybe what the players wanted. And we saw it really dumbed down to just like a handful of plays and they would only do certain things at certain times. Like maybe they need a guy to be like, listen, Jalen Hurts, I know you're a Super Bowl MVP. I know you want to do this way, but this is what I've had success with. You can do this. We've seen you do this at times. Like they maybe need somebody to kind of be the adult in the room and make those decisions. So we've seen, like you mentioned, Cliff Kingsbury is going to be in shotgun and then stay there. Mike McDaniel is going to do more stuff out of a shotgun and pistol, while Kevin Stefanski might do more under center, or Mike LaFleur or Zach Robinson. Those are more under center, play action, zone runs, things like that. So there's so many different dynamics at play with all these candidates. It's going to be interesting to see how much of a factor Nick Sirianni plays, how much does Jalen Hurts play, and then obviously Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman kind of looming over all of it.
Yeah, and it'd be taking potentially, if they went with Cliff Kingsbury, but taking an NFC East former coordinator. I know that Kellen Moore wasn't directly from the Cowboys; it was the Chargers, and then moving over there. But it would be interesting to be like, hey, let's take another NFC East coordinator and have success there. I just like the fact that again, you go down the list of tons of guys, and you mentioned this a second ago, but I'll just plug it again. The PhillySpecialShow.com. Anthony's got the article there of the 21 different coordinators and potential candidates. You can take your pick. Let us know which one your favorite is, but you got so many options of guys who have experience of doing it and having success and having a top 10 offense, or even heck, a top 15 offense, just being an average offense, but just having that sequencing and something that you can go back to, which we did not see basically the entire year of like, okay, why are you calling a specific play? Like something would work and it goes, sweet, that's a great play. What are you doing to build off of that? And it was like, instead of, having a plan for a play to set up something else. Now, we're not asking him to be Kyle Shanahan. It's incredible seeing the film breakdown, especially after the fact, and going like, man, that was totally set up to.
I was going to say, seeing the difference
game,
between
right?
the two is like,
yeah, no wonder you got Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman up there like, yeah, he's getting fired. There's no chance, but they were already set on that a long time ago. But you see the differences there. We're not asking for a Kyle Shanahan, but although that would be great to have, someone of that magnitude. But if you just have someone who better understands to sequence and kind of connect those things, instead of Patullo, it was like winning the lottery almost. It was like one play worked. Let's go. That's great. And then just like the celebration hype. And all right, what do we call now? That one. There's just no rhyme or reason. And it was the most infuriating thing ever. You at least would have offense coordinators that are proven and kind of setting things up based on what the defense is doing or maybe not doing. And you love to see that in the game, kind of the chess match of, hey, we just ran that. They didn't key off of this one guy. What if we go back to it here? And we just did not see that, as opposed to Kellen Moore. And you remember there's tons of plays that we saw during the Super Bowl run that Kellen even mentioned in his press conference afterwards. He's like, yeah, it's the presentation. A lot of it is the exact same play in the exact same formation, but then you break the tendency. You have the tendency breaker. And KP mentioned that in press conferences a decent amount, especially early in the season. We just never saw it. It was like
he was reading from a script.
Where's the It's like, where's the tendency breaker? Where's the something to show off of it? But there's a lot of great options. FZ with a 10, appreciate that as much as it was KP. What do you think of Jalen Hurts? Brady said he was getting out of the pocket too quick. If the offense struggles this upcoming season, will it be on Jalen or Nick? Love my boy Ant-Man. There you go. A little support for Anthony.
I appreciate that, Ben. And I've said it all along during my takeaway articles after each game that this was not simply just the Kevin Patullo problem. And I was very happy to hear Saquon Barkley. I shared the quote on Twitter, and Jordan Mailata kind of echoed the same thing. They were both pretty much said that no matter what changes are made as far as coaching wise, and they pretty much allude, and they were asked about Kevin Patullo in particular, but they pretty much said, if we don't get better, if the players don't improve and either get better in the offseason or execute better when the time comes, that they're going to be in the same exact spot next season. That they pretty much admitted that it wasn't just Kevin Patullo, right? It was obviously the players who had to play a part in it too. And we saw it with the penalties, especially in that second half. They were just constantly behind the sticks. Now, granted, should they have ran once they got behind the sticks so much? That's a Patullo problem.
Probably not.
That's why I don't think this is going to be a very long offseason. There's going to be a lot of changes, I think, in the coaching staff, on the roster, just because of the free agents that they have, and just they're going to be moving in different directions. What happens with Lane Johnson? There are so many factors at play. But at the end of the day, the players also have to improve too, and that starts with Jalen Hurts, who will be the first one to say that he needs to be better. So I don't think he'll get worse from this. If anything, I think he'll improve. And for the most part, he played pretty well. But there were plays that he definitely left out there. We talked about his lack of his willingness to run, not even design plays, but you watch there were times where he did that thing that we talked about so much, where he just scrambled to his right and didn't look to run. He was either throwing it out of bounds or he was doing that awkward slide and for a loss of 1 yard. And the very next game that day, right, was the Patriots Chargers, I believe, and you see both Drake May and Justin Herbert, who they're athletic, but I don't think they're the same athlete that Jalen Hurts are, and they each had 50 plus rushing yards, and they're making plays with their legs. When the plays break down, it doesn't have to be design runs. You can make plays with your legs and step up in the pocket and and run. You saw Brock Purdy do it a couple of times. So
I know, yeah,
it's Jalen Hurts needs to be better 100%, but everybody does. The offensive line was terrible this year. They need to be better. The coaching staff needs to be better. Whoever is held over for this season. So it's not going to be simply just a new OC. Now everything is fixed. So it's going to be a very long offseason, and I'm interested to see all the changes that are going to be made.
Yep, I am as well. And again, to the question or the thought, just further with Jalen Hurts, we've seen him more than capable, right? And you can point to and say was it a great season? No, it was not. Was it the offense was boring? It was basic, but there were shades every once in a while of hey, there you go. There's a good throw. There's a read. There's something else, and he's shown that he's capable of doing that. This season was such an outlier in terms of hitches that it's that wasn't always the case. So you can't tell me oh man, Jalen just doesn't know how to throw the ball unless it's a hitch or a flat. Dare we do anything different than a hitch or a flat or maybe a go ball occasionally, right? That's the only thing that we can throw there. You've seen him be able to make other throws. You've seen him be able to make other reads. It, for some reason, went to the absolute extreme basicness, and a lack of a running game, it hurts any quarterback. So not giving him a pass there, but that is another element, as you said a second ago, Anthony. He's look, if the team does not correct fundamental issues for the personnel themselves and playing better, it doesn't matter. As you said, it doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is. This offensive line has to bare minimum be average. Bare minimum. Now you could say, okay, pass blocking, they were fine. They were okay. But in terms of run blocking, we're talking about this offensive line is paid that way to be a top 10 at the worst, a top 10 run blocking unit. And they were 25th, 26th, based on whatever metric you want to look at there, somewhere in that range. It's inexcusable for the amount of money that's paid on this roster and the guys that you have. So they got to make some changes. As you said, this offseason is going to be very exciting. I don't know that you could make it work financially. It'll be interesting. I do see some of the quotes and tweets about Mekhi Becton and not necessarily working out in LA with the Chargers. Would it be cool and fun to have him back as a guard? Sure, yeah, but there's a lot of other areas with it. I mean, we could talk about draft, right, which we'll have that lots throughout the offseason. Anthony is very excited about that as usual, but lots of talk for different mock drafts and candidates that can go there. At least there's a lot of ammunition for Howie going into this draft, so you know that he's trying to look at that. How does he replenish, get back on track? But it's going to be interesting. I mean, take care of offensive coordinator first. Then you got a laundry list of other things to fix or at least correct and try to address there. Unflattering truth of 5. Appreciate that. Why won't Jalen use his legs? What made him so dangerous? He just falls down so fast. See, that's what we're talking about a second ago. I love QB1, but it's just so confusing. Fly, Eagles, fly. Like you said, he should be able to be as good and effective as Drake May, Justin Herbert, like take off and run. It just does not happen. And I don't know if that's a mental aspect there of him trying to force too much. Like, oh no, I'm going to be a pocket passer. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to figure out a way to throw this football rather than take off and run. I don't know if that's the case there, but it is frustrating. It got more so as the season went on when we would play these other quarterbacks and be like, gosh, I mean, Vic Fangio talks about it all the time. What's his favorite thing about a quarterback? Every time he's asked about the opposing quarterback, if they're a scrambler, that's like the first thing he brings up. He's like, oh, they're a scrambler. Bo Nix, he's a scrambler.
Jackson Dart was like his favorite quarterback to talk about. He was like, he gives us so many problems. Like that kid's he's a gamer. Like he's gonna. And you saw what he was able to do against the Eagles. Obviously that first game, especially. But like, yeah, it's just I wrote about it at like this is I think like week 14 or 15 where I was just like, Jalen Hurts needs to run. Like it's time.
Yes,
because everybody was saying like. They were saving it for the playoffs. That was this big theory that people had that all of a sudden playoffs are going to come around and they're going to say, oh, we don't have to worry about an injury anymore. Like, let's unleash Jalen Hurts, the runner. And I was kind of skeptical of that. I was like, I don't think that's not how it works. You don't just like turn that switch on and off. And sure enough, playoff game came and he barely ran, right? So the one play that they did call a design run, they got called back for a holding.
That was so maddening.
And we already know how. We already know how Kevin Patullo operates. So the fact that the holding was called on that, he was never going to call
that play again. Oh no, it's cursed.
Like, if that was successful, then maybe he would have called more design runs. But once he got a holding call, he's like, oh, can't call any more design runs for Jalen Hurts. And like I said, he wasn't willing to run either as a scrambler when things broke down. So that's definitely something that has to change. And I think that's why a guy like Cliff Kingsbury or Brian Daboll or Todd Monken, like they all have experience and have shown that they can maximize a mobile quarterback skill set. It's just a matter of were the stories true that Jalen Hurts didn't want to run, right? Because now it sure does look like he didn't want to run.
Yeah.
So, but it also could come down to whoever comes in and just says like, listen, in order for us to be the best offense we can be and the best team we can be, you need to run. So I don't know what you're thinking or what you care about. And I know you got paid and I know you got Super Bowl MVP. Like if you want to win, you have to run. So I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because and you have to be like, look, we understand that there's a more of a risk for injury, but who cares at this point? Like the reason that you have better success in the run game, even with Saquon Barkley, is Jalen going to pull it? Is he going to keep the ball and run? And will he be aggressive in running rather than just that, like, oh, as you said, kind of dance around behind the line of scrimmage for just a tiny bit and then slide for a 1 yard loss? Pick up 4 or 5 yards. Move the sticks, get ahead of the sticks, have some sort of positivity there. It's like, it's so maddening. And but that was a lot of other candidates, a lot of other offensive coordinators. If they could come in there, then you see differences of what, like a Baltimore did, top pick on that side. You've got ways that you can be effective. It doesn't need to be Jackson Dart, like, idiotic running, but you can still pick up yards and have an effective dual threat quarterback. And it's just amazing that Jalen Hurts had, almost for all intents and purposes, was basically not a dual threat quarterback, especially like the second half of the season, just not a dual threat quarterback, whether that was KP, whether it was Jalen Hurts, whether it was a combination of both of them. But yeah, you're not maximizing near enough from the offense if that's the case. Qualified with the 5, appreciate that. Also, I would like whoever the new offensive coordinator is to have complete autonomy on offense. Go Birds.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I think that's what they would want to do. I feel like they gave Nick Sirianni his chance this year, and I think that's why he got involved towards the end of the year, where you saw the report come out that he was like in the meetings, and then he confirmed that to reporting, saying like he felt like he needed to step in because he knew like he pretty much put his neck out on the line to promote his guy. It didn't work out, so he was trying to do his best to kind of make things work. But now it'll be another Kellen Moore situation where, granted, I do think Nick Sirianni will probably be sitting in on meetings. They might have some like say here and there, like philosophically, like try not to turn the ball over, things like that. But whoever you're bringing in, I think that's going to be part of the interview process, right? It's like Cliff Kingsbury is not going to want to be like listening to Nick Sirianni and what he wants to do. He's going to be like, listen, I've had success doing this. I want to do
for
this.
sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah. The
there will be
only
some dynamic
things,
at play.
yeah, I was gonna say the only thing that you might see, like the mic'd up clip in the Super Bowl, right, is talking about do they run the dagger or not. He's like, yeah, just call it, just call it. He might have a little bit of input as far as they're just debating between things or having conversations, but yeah, it would be it's Howie and Lurie's decision that they're the ones putting the guy in charge. They're gonna say, yeah, Nick, we need you to just stay out of it. You just take care of the culture here. Don't be getting involved in those decisions on the play calls. The Christopher the 5, I think it's going to be Frank Reich, experienced, familiar with the organization, a relationship with Nick, and he's not looking to be head coach, so stability. Okay, that is a take. I would very strongly disagree with that one. Not that again, you could pick a lot of guys that are much better than KP, but I don't think they're actually going back to that route. Familiarity is sometimes good and sometimes bad, and I don't think that they're going to go that direction. I think there's a lot of other guys, as we've been talking about, that are more exciting to them. They buy into it more. The analytics department wants a really big say, and I don't know. I'm just speculating, but like, how much is Frank Reich willing to listen to the analytics department? That was something that Doug Peterson got at odds with at times. So they're going to want to say, hey, in this situation, just so you know, like the analytics department overrules whatever you might want to do as an offensive coordinator. Now they'll have a lot of say as we're talking about, like whoever the offensive coordinator is, but there are select instances where analytics department rules. I don't know if that's Frank Reich, but again, out of the options that they have, I don't envision them going like, yeah, let's go back to the much older former coaching experience and get Frank Reich.
Yeah, Frank Reich was like a hot name during the season when people were like, oh, are they going to bring in an offensive consultant? I had mentioned him then. I actually listed him in my article of the 21 candidates as one of those stable veterans in that category that I put him in. Like you mentioned, he would be an older guy that probably wouldn't be getting any head coach interest. Like he would be, if you hired him, you don't have to really necessarily worry about losing him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike McCoy is another guy similar to Frank Reich that has extensive experience working with Nick Sirianni, a veteran offensive coach. So either one of those guys makes sense as like, I mean, if they got a late start on this market, I feel like they would be potential options. But I think they could be brought in maybe as like a senior advisor, especially if they went with one of these more like inexperienced guys where you're going to hire like a Nathan Scheelhaas from the Rams, and then you bring in a guy like that to kind of be that experienced voice to help them along the way. But I think if you're hiring like a Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know if you're necessarily bringing in a Frank Reich. I don't think Frank Reich is the answer standalone as an OC. I kind of just listed him because of his connection to both the Eagles and obviously with Nick Sirianni as well.
Yeah. Now that's a name, by the way. And I don't even know if this is 100% how I would say it. I thought it was Nathan Scheelhaas, but it may be.
I could be botching
All
it.
I did was I saw one Iowa State video. And who knows if that guy, because he was a television reporter in Iowa, so I maybe he was. But either way, that's a name out there that's like a complete wild card. There's like excitement if you strike gold in the sense of like taking a pass game coordinator, but there's also a ton of fear if you even say that. I saw some people, mention that or talk about just the comments as far as we just went from pass game coordinator and get a offensive coordinator play caller. He was offensive coordinator at Iowa State, but no play calling experience, no offensive coordinator experience, I should say, in the NFL. He's gotten good, I don't know, mentorship of sorts or whatever you want to call it, because he's obviously in a Sean McVay system. So what they run is exciting, incredible, probably lots of information. And every once in a while, you do see teams that take chances on a guy like that, maybe, and it hits. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like this could be incredible. And I mentioned this in the live stream earlier today. But he seems like one of those candidates. We talk about like the youth and guys who may get poached after a year to get a head coaching job. He seems like one of those that's so young, even if he has extreme success as an offensive coordinator, like let's say hypothetically the Eagles got him and we went to all the way to the Super Bowl and won. It seems like he's so young that a team would still be like, I don't know if we're ready to quite pull the trigger on head coach. Like he would get interviews, but I don't know if it would be so quick of like, wait, you just went from 1 year offensive coordinator to immediately a head coach. Maybe you would, because, teams are trying to get the next guy and they might just say, hey, we're going to pull the trigger. But he does feel like one that you might be able to get a couple years out of before ultimately, and again, that's if he has success, but it's a huge wild card.
Yeah, he's a name that the Eagles are kind of actually a little bit early on, right? And that's a credit to Nick Sirianni and his relationship with Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell, who I believe they were at Mount Union together. They've held a relationship since then. The Eagles interviewed Nathan Scheelhaas. We're going with is what we're going with.
I think so. That's what I heard on the
They interviewed him for the OC opening in 2023, I believe, right before they promoted Brian Johnson. So that's when his name first kind of popped up on the radar. Then he got hired by the Rams. He very notably became Sean McVay's play drawer, which was it's not an official title. He had a different title with the team, obviously, but that was one of the roles that he served. And there have been several head coaches that have went on that held that role, that went on to become head coaches in the NFL. So he's kind of now viewed as this hot commodity around the NFL coaching circles. And it seems like it's only a matter of time before 2-3 years where he will be an NFL head coach. So it would probably be a hire that's only lasts for maybe a season or two. But if the Eagles do want to go with that hot commodity, a player, a guy or a coach that, like I said, they were early on, they're going to have a ton of background on because of Nick Sirianni's relationship with Matt Campbell. So definitely a name to get, as far as all the inexperienced gambles that I referenced in the article, he's definitely at the top of that list and definitely somebody to keep an eye on for the Eagles in particular.
Yeah, would be that one feels like to me if because again at some point we're going to get the notifications offensive coordinator hired, right? So and it wouldn't be surprising if he gets an interview at the very least, because he did previously, and they'll probably bring him in, do their due diligence. But if that's the one there that if he gets hired, I could feel maybe the most polarizing or one of the most polarizing, because I think there'd be a lot of people who go, okay, it's exciting, but a lot of people are like, what are we doing here? We got a guy who he could draw up plays, but can he sequence them? Can he call the right plays at the right time? Is there that experience?
I actually just thought of a player comparison for him, and that would actually be my guy Jalen Hurts, because the Eagles drafted him in the third round.
Yep.
He was changing positions, so he's he would be changing from a passing game coordinator to an offensive coordinator, obviously. But people I feel like there would be 75% of people who the hell is this guy? I've never heard of him. What is he like? And that was kind of the same thing with Jalen Hurts, right? They're Houston Christian, he's just now switching to defensive end. What, this guy's not going to be any good. And then maybe a year or two later, they're wait, that was a great hire over that. And the Jalen Hurts scenario, that was a great pick. So it would definitely be a polarizing decision, like you said. Definitely one of the ones that would either be there would be two extremes, right? People would either love it or they would hate it, and it would just be only a matter of time to see how it works out.
Yeah. But if he was, everyone's searching for the next insert your guy, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, that coaching tree, and that's why there are coaching trees. So teams take the gamble because you want the guy. You never know. Cold Cash with a 5. No matter what offensive coordinator we get, Nick needs to step up, or we'll just stay in this good 1 year bad, and the 1 year next won't shock if the offensive coordinator leaves after 1 year. That's what we were saying. I mean, it's kind of the vicious cycle, but look, it's the Eagles' offensive coordinator position is it's a highly sought after job, right? Why wouldn't you want to coach this group?
Well, depending on who you ask, but that's another.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, if you're worth anything, no pressure, no diamonds. I'm sorry, but yes, you have incredible weapons, but of course you can, okay, if you don't do good, you're gone. It is a short leash, but it should be a short leash. Who doesn't? You kid Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. This offensive line, I know they weren't what they should be, but still, they should be. Solid. All those weapons, all that money spent on the offense, if you think that you're worth anything as an offensive coordinator, yes, you should absolutely be going, please, I will take that. Look at Kellen Moore. He took the risk, this is not a very sought after job. Who wants the Eagles one, right? He got a head coaching gig. Well, 1 year. That's all that it took. I know he'd been OC before, but 1 year with the Eagles, take them all the way to the Super Bowl, maximize the talent there, push the right buttons, call the right plays, and it just parlays to that. The Eagles have so much publicity they're going to get so much recognition. And if you are trying to make it, absolutely. So again, that's why we say like a Kevin Stefanski, if he can't land a head coaching gig or it's not the right one that he's wanting at this point, he may also go, you know what? It's not the worst thing. I might be able to just 1 year. Cool. Let's go to Philly. Let's have success there. Then next year, I'll get a job. You know, Cliff Kingsbury. That's why he might do the same thing. You go down the line, but yeah, I did see some of those takes as it's not a sought after job, and I'm like, what are we doing here? It's not. It's like so many other organizations you could say that about, but really, you want to tell me Philly and the amount of money they spent on offense is not a sought after job for an offensive coordinator? It's crazy.
It's like basically when you get the job with the Eagles as offense coordinator, you're at a fork in the road, right? Like there's two different directions you can go. Either you fail and like you become like a position coach or a passing game coordinator somewhere else, right? We saw that with like Mike Groh, Brian Johnson, or you succeed and you're just an NFL head coach, like Shane Steichen and Cohen Moore,
yeah.
even Jonathan Gannon on the defensive side of the ball. So like, I don't know how people can sit here with a straight face. Nick Sirianni in 5 seasons has produced 3 head coaches that have come out of his staff. There are coaches that were around for 10 plus years that didn't produce that many head coaches. So I don't know how people can sit with a straight face and say that Philadelphia is not an enticing offense coordinator job, like location. It's just crazy to me.
It is. It's I don't know, but you know, everybody's got a take, and I guess that's fine. But I've seen some of that, and we're like, okay, well, that's craziness. Qualified, appreciate that. The member for 10 months. Let's take a poll. Okay, what are we taking the poll though? I mentioned a couple different potentials. Let me refresh the memory. What's the exact poll? And in the meantime, I'm going to get to the super chat here from Ty with a 2. I think Cliff Kingsbury should be our head coach, not our offensive coordinator. Well, it won't happen this year. If you want that to happen, it won't be. It won't be this year. OC is going to be the best that he could do. Qualified also with a 5. Could you imagine Daboll and Nick on the sidelines throwing tantrums? Jalen would lose his mind.
That's something that I actually looked into, right? Because
I think
know
they would pair well together, actually.
But Brian Daboll, I know as a head coach, he was on the sideline, but I looked back to his time with the Bills, and he actually did spend time both in the booth and like on the field. And there was actually a theory when he was in Buffalo that like the second he went into the booth, I think they had like a top 10 offense whenever he was in the booth. And then when he was on the field, so like as a coordinator, there is a very real chance if he lands in Philadelphia that it could be Vic Fangio in the booth and also Brian Daboll in the booth as well, which is something that people actually called for. I think Nick Foles famously called around like mid-season that like maybe Kevin Patullo needs to go into the booth just to get away from the sideline,
change something,
get a different perspective. You could see more. You get like basically the all 22, right? You could see everything on the field, whereas on the sideline you're obviously field level. So a lot of the game's best play callers will call the game from the booth. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Brian Daboll do that if he landed in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and that would help kind of avoid the narrative about him and Nick Sirianni screaming in each other's faces.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, I think so too. Well, and you know, Fangio's obviously been up there, so he knows what he's doing as far as
the clips of him have
like,
been hilarious. I feel like
yeah,
they only started recently. I feel like we didn't see him the entire season, but it's so funny to see this old Italian guy like, come on.
Oh
like,
yeah. Just the irritation with you got to be kidding me. What's going on here?
It's like my grandfather's here again.
JP with a 5. I would love Daboll as offensive coordinator. Jalen, Saquon, and Devontae have experience with his play calling. Also, it would be an FU to the Giants, so a little bit of an added benefit there. It would be if they had success. Yeah, it would be. Although, yeah, again, you could be an unsuccessful head coach and you could be a really good coordinator, right? Like Vic Fangio, even he had some stints as head coach, not near as good, but defensive coordinator, that's incredible.
That's like the best kind of example too, right? Because Vic Fangio also had like a very similar tenure where there was coaches that he was getting into it with, players that were talking bad about him that like ended up being let go even after he left Miami. That whole debacle where the Dolphins players were trashing him. So Vic Fangio was also a very polarizing figure. He wasn't viewed as this like perfect guy that was never going to get into confrontations with anybody. Like he had his fair share of reported like differences or anything like that with coaches and players. So yeah, I think there's kind of some similarities with him and Brian Daboll in that regard.
Yep. Not Steffi with a 5. just tuned in, but how opposed are we to bringing in Nick Foles as a passing game coordinator or assistant role? Been liking his takes.
Yeah, he's been killing it with his podcast. I think he's had a pretty level-headed approach
Oh
to
yeah,
unlike some of those other player-led shows and podcasts out there. He's like basically brutally honest, which is what you want to see from a player with especially with his level of experience. So would they potentially bring him in? I think that would be kind of cool to see, but I also don't. He's very like a very family oriented man. Like I think he's enjoying kind of that retired life right now. Maybe he is kind of openly pitching for a job with the Eagles, but I think he's probably pretty comfortable doing what he's doing right now. He's got like an apparel line, like Dad Season, I believe it's called, or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. And he's probably enjoying golfing and just recording a podcast every now and then. It's kind of picking up steam, and he
Mm-hmm.
can kind of just capitalize off that.
He's a really good pickleball player as well. Apparently one of the best. So just for
I've never tried it.
what that's
I've been
worth.
telling my wife I want to get into it, but
It's pretty
I
fun.
haven't.
Yeah, you should. You should give it a go.
With my luck, I'll end up tearing an ACL,
It's
but I can't work.
don't,
It'll be a big problem.
don't do that. Don't injure yourself. But it is fun if you get a chance. No, and I do agree. I think that if he were wanting to, it would be exciting if it was a pass game coordinator or honestly like a quarterback coach, depending on relationship level, if he works out Jalen and some of that, but just what he sees, how he sees the field, and he does feel like one of those type of guys that explains it very well. Obviously, just we're seeing from the podcast level, but you would assume it translates pretty closely to working with a guy like Jalen Hurts. So, yeah, I would love to see that. Fanny with a 5. Appreciate that. Josh and Ant-Man, what's up? I think Nick's statement to KP was 5-star and heartfelt. What we need now is just continuity so we can win the crown. Birds fly together. It was a good statement.
Yeah, it was a little confusing though, because like you mentioned, well, I tweeted out the screenshots of the team's official article where it was like at first it said Eagles part ways. You can see it on my Twitter if you haven't seen it by now, but Eagles part ways with Kevin Patullo. Then it was changed to Eagles make change at offense coordinator.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
even the team seemed like it was confused about what was going on because right away Mike Garofalo, I believe, reported that like there was a chance that he was going to stick around. Adam Schefter had said like Eagles fired Kevin Patullo. Like so to me, it's just more so them trying to like save face. Nick Sirianni looking out for his boy. Like maybe there is a chance that he sticks around in Philadelphia. I was talking to Josh before we started the stream saying that if he does stick around in like a different role because Parks Frazier is currently the passing game coordinator, which he previously held, which is the title he previously held. They don't have an associate head coach, which is one of his other titles that he held. So, but would you really like want to make the offense coordinator you just had an associate head coach? That kind of seems like almost like a too high of a title to give somebody that you're kind of demoting.
Yeah.
But I did mention that I've said for years that I think Aaron Moorhead, the wide receiver coach, isn't necessarily maximizing the talent or developing the other guys. Like I felt like Jahan Dotson was just nothing since he arrived in Philadelphia. Granted, he didn't get a ton of targets, but just would have liked to see him do more with some of the other players around A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But Kevin Patullo has experience as a wide receiver coach. It seems like both Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown always spoke highly of KP whenever they were asked about him. So maybe that could be Nick Sirianni's way of kind of like looking out for his boy, keeping him around, but also being like, listen, you're not going to be like involved with the play calling or anything like that. Like you can have the wide receiver room. You can kind of develop these guys, but let the big boys over here handle everything else.
Yeah, yeah, and just stay very far behind the scenes, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Nowhere near. Nobody give him that headset. He's not needing that one. Michael with the 10. Anthony been saying this. There's a narrative Jalen needs more. I'm just getting to this. So I'm wondering maybe they'll have more context clues. There's a narrative Jalen needs more say, but in some ways it seems like Patullo has given him too much. We need an OC who's willing to make him uncomfortable and help him grow.
Yep, that's exactly what I was saying before, where you kind of need like an adult in the room. And I don't want to say that Jalen Hurts doesn't deserve to have a say because obviously I still think he's like a top 10, 15 quarterback in the NFL. He's a former Super Bowl MVP. Like he's shown that when he's in a good spot, he can play among the best or play better than the best, right? He outperformed Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls. But at the same time, we saw this year, like I mentioned earlier, where it seemed like they just simplified everything too much, where they were like, Jalen, what do you like? And they just, I don't know, like maybe he said he didn't want to run, and that's why we didn't see any quarterback runs. Like you need somebody to be like, listen, if you want to win, if this is what you really care about, you talk about all this team first, whatever it takes. This is what it takes. Like we need you to be a dual threat quarterback. We need you to throw deep balls. We need you to throw these in breaking routes with anticipation. Like you need to do this. Like if you want to succeed, you need to adapt and you need to make some changes too. So I 100% agree with that super chat and think that's what's going to happen if they get one of these veteran offensive play callers.
Yeah, as we've been saying, they got to be. Jalen's got to be special. You know, he has been. We've seen him be capable of that, but not so much, unfortunately, especially the second half of the year. Get the right OC. Changes differently there. Red Scorpion with a 10. Appreciate that. What's up, Josh? Ant, I came late. Didn't hear your list to recap your top 5 candidates for me. Okay. Do you have a top 5? You got the top
I have a top
21
that you can check over at the phillyspecialshow.com. But I can give you my top 5 right now if you want, just like off the top of my head. I can
okay. I'm
try and rattle
on
off
this too.
So I'm making it up on the fly, honestly, but I have my list of 21 here, so I'll try and whittle it down to 5. But number 1, I have Brian Daboll. I still think I have a lengthy tweet that I sent out for the reasons why I think he makes sense as the top candidate. I think you don't have to make like a drastic change schematically with the offense if he came in, but there are certain principles that he would kind of implement that would kind of maximize all the players that are in Philadelphia, and just his experience that he would bring to the table is obviously important too. So I would go Brian Daboll, and then I would probably have Todd Monken. I know you're a big fan of his. He's probably number 1 on your list, but I'm very into the idea of hiring Todd Monken because also, like we mentioned earlier in the stream, that I don't think you have to worry about losing him to a head coaching job like anytime soon. So those would probably be my top 2. Then Cliff Kingsbury would probably be 3rd. And I know people are probably like, why not over Mike McDaniel? But I think McDaniel, he gets a lot of praise and he does all these fun motions and things like that. But I don't know if it would be the best mix with Jalen Hurts' skill set and what he likes to do. I think it would almost be too much of a shift in the opposite direction. And then 4th, probably Kevin Stefanski. I really like a lot of the under center stuff that he does. And I think he would really help the running game. I know he's not Cleveland wasn't regarded for this unstoppable offense while he was there, but some of the things that he did do and did incorporate, I think would gel well. And he's got a good relationship with Nick Sirianni. They had obviously the joint practices together. He's a local guy. He's from Philadelphia. So I think stuff like that kind of matters. And he would probably value that as well. And then lastly, I'm still keeping Mike McDaniel off the list, which people might think is crazy, but I'm going to go with Zach Robinson. He was a former Falcons offense coordinator. He's not a name that we mentioned yet, but he worked a little bit, I believe, with the Rams under Sean McVay, and he's got like a couple years of experience as an OC. Obviously, there was some people saying his first year in Atlanta, things didn't go as well, but this year they had 3 All-Pros. Obviously, Bijan Robinson looked great. Drake London looked great when he was healthy. Kyle Pitts finally had the year that it felt like everybody was waiting for forever. So maybe you bring Zach Robinson in, and then you sign Kyle Pitts in free agency to be the new Dallas Goedert. Maybe now we're cooking with oil right there.
Hang on, yeah, we get both of those. Wouldn't mind that. Yeah, I like that. I would shift the Monken, but I'm also not super high on Mike McDaniel for kind of the same reasons that you talked about. And it's like a combo, like my personal preference, but also trying to be realistic of what the organization is going to do. I think that you could have some success, but like you said there too, I think it would be such a drastic shift from what this team is and does. And I don't know necessarily if that also feeds into the front office and the analytics department, but to go from the least motion or second to lowest motion percentage to the absolute extreme top first in motion, pre-snap motion and all the other just craziness, I'm not sure that for a team, because let's just make this clear as well. Nick Sirianni preaches the no turnovers, and that is a Sirianni philosophy, but it's also an organizational philosophy. It's the analytics department that's backing that up and saying we don't turn the football over, because the analytics say if we don't turn the football over, we're going to win whatever it is percentage of games. So I just can't envision that they're going to say such an extreme of let's take chances, because obviously the more motion and pitches and creativity and stuff that happens with that can lead to more turnovers. So I kind of agree. I would probably have him off the top 5 also, but you could do you could pick anybody. We said you could just blindly look at the 21 list or list.
Just scroll up and down,
and just point and then go, there you go. If they land on any of them, you'd be better than what KP is. So bogged down with a 20 bomb. There we go. Whatever happened with a 1-2 punch with Barkley and Bigsby, or Big Bark as we know them affectionately, in the second half looked like it worked in the first half. I mean, it's two letters, 2 words, right? 2 letters. KP, like That what I mean, what else happened? It's the same thing all year.
Unfortunately, it felt like that 1-2 punch that very clearly should have been a thing that this team leaned on rather heavily, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was just never a thing. We saw it in that Giants
not.
game where like Tank Bigsby came in late and kind of just ran away with the game and went over the 100-yard mark or whatever it was. And it seemed like he was in that first half against the Niners. It was like, oh, they're finally giving him the ball. He had 3 carries for like 24 yards or something like that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, he was great. But then
every time Tank Bigsby gets the ball, he was giving you a productive touch. And I said it when he first started getting that role. What was it, like week 9 or 10 where they finally shifted him from kick returner? Then there was like a couple weeks where he wasn't even playing.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was they started like having him as the RB2, and it just never came to be like. But that goes along with like a ton of the personnel usage that was along the offense, where it's like, why are you having Grant Calcaterra, who, thank God, hopefully we never have to say his name again because he's a free agent. But
gosh.
It's like, why? All right, he's on the field for 30 snaps. Okay, but why is he run blocking on 25 of those snaps? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Why are you double chipping your tight ends against the worst pass rush in the league against the 49ers?
Yeah.
It's like,
you go down the list of
doing?
Why are we doing all of
it's
these
just
things?
like,
why are we running 4 verticals on a cover 4 that we know was going to happen? Robert Saleh had called cover 4 all game. That was basically the immediate go-to because, and you know what? Credit to Robert Saleh, because we understand what the Eagles do. They're trying to set up the deep shot. And he's like, look, the Eagles are not going to be a deep shot. That we are going to force Jalen Hurts in that offense to methodically move down the field. And he gambled that Kevin Patullo could not call enough successful plays to get the Eagles to 5 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards, 5 yards. He's like, nope, he's gonna do it because he's too there's too much of a temptation, even though he knows it's gonna be cover 4. Like, there's the deep shot. There's the deep shot to Dallas Goedert. I don't know why we're running an out and up to Dallas Goedert with cover 4 in the formation there. There's no way he's going to run past anybody. There's always the back off coverage. But then it was, a loss of 2 on a run, a deep shot, and there you go. Hey, guys, guess what? We got a 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12. They're for sure not going to get this one converted. So I don't know. I mean,
come on, Josh. We need some positivity. This is a new day. It's a new day.
We are positive. It's just it's more of like I laugh to keep from crying, and we could joke about it now because Kevin Patullo's gone, and feel better about it, right? Because like we're eliminated, it doesn't matter. But in the heat of the moment, it was just like furious and going. Hopefully the defense can carry, because by week like 5 or whatever it was in this season, you can go back and look at the live streams and the videos, the recaps, everything else. That was about whenever I had said officially, I was like, okay, you know what, KP's not the answer, and it's fine. People want to point out like, dude, you were late to the game. That's fine. We saw the comments. We understand. Week 1, week 2, lots of people going, nah, he's not the answer. That's it. That's fine. It took me 3 or 4 weeks after a lot of people, but eventually it did happen. The only thing I was holding on to was like, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there's a possibility, because sometimes you see what happened. I brought this up on the last live stream. You see what happened with Jacksonville. Liam Cohen, that offense for the Jaguars was terrible. They were really struggling for the first 5-6 weeks, whatever it was, and then they flipped the switch. They started doing so many things differently. The execution was better, of course, but just play calling, sequencing, getting a better identity. So that was my blind hope, and it didn't pay off. But yeah, it's just it's comical whenever you see that, like I saw some of the takes of like, oh, Robert Saleh called a fantastic game. And you know what? Like, kudos to him. He called a good game, but like, he didn't just outclass his own OC. He didn't outclass Kyle Shanahan. He didn't just outclass Sean McVay. He outclassed Kevin Patullo, who runs hitches at 47% rate, right? Like, what's coming. It's gonna happen every single time. And in the first half, it honestly felt like Saleh was like filling it out to go, is he gonna do this? Is he gonna keep calling these plays? Because it didn't really change much. There was more success in terms of some of the execution in the first half, but then it was like, oh no, he's for real. Like, this is all he does. So okay, great. Let's double down to stop the run, and he's not gonna do anything in the passing game.
He probably went into that game thinking like, they're definitely going to change things up in the playoffs. Like, he was probably like
yes.
Eagles fans, like, no, they're going to use Jalen Hurts as a runner, right? Like, they're just saving this stuff for the playoffs. And he's like, wait, they're just not going to ever throw intermediate routes. They can just either run the ball and into a heavy box or throw a deep shot. He's like, oh, so we can just not defend between 10 to 19 yards and just cover everything else, and we'll be fine. And sure enough, They didn't change anything.
They did not. And he told Bryce Huff, he's like, look, Bryce, I know you're not great against the run, but they're going to try to block you with Kylan Granson and Grant Calcaterra. So you're just going to split that, and you're going to become a good run stopper in a game that we've never seen you do this, but we know you will because they're going to try to block you with tight ends. I don't know. Again, we can move on from that side. One more thing I will say, just because Bogdan mentioned this with the 20 here, we do appreciate that. But I also had this thought for why they went away from Tank Bigsby is he was being successful, but I think it was the last run he had in the game, which was still early in the first half or one of the second to last runs, whatever it was. He had a carry where he picked up a good bit of yards, but it was really physical, really aggressive. And if you remember, he kind of started to lose the ball. Like he ran into him really hard. Whoever the 49ers defender kind of got knocked back, but his hands kind of, or he got hit kind of on the side, and he had to like look back and grab the ball and then like go down. And I thought to myself, I was like, of course he subbed out immediately for Saquon. Now, he had gotten a few carries in a row, so you could make the right, well, he's just tired. But I had the thought to myself, I was like, I don't know if he's going to get another handoff the rest of the game. Like, I think that Sirianni, maybe two, but Sirianni and Patullo saw that, and they're like, oh my gosh, he almost fumbled. But he didn't. He almost fumbled, but he didn't. And I think they might have just been like, nope, that's it. It was too close. It was too close to a turnover. Never again. Right? It's the same instance of what you said a second ago. Jalen Hurts on empty, picked up 12 yards. It's a flag. Don't call it again.
It was like the game a couple of weeks ago where Cameron Latu had that mistake on special teams.
Yeah,
he couldn't down the punt because they ran I think it was like 8 or 9 plays, something like that, with him in at fullback or like tight end or whatever role you want to call it, where they had a bunch of successful runs. Right, I pointed out after the game that on those plays, I think Saquon averaged like 5+ yards per carry, and then every other run when he was on the field was like 3 point something yards per carry. And after that mistake, like in punt coverage, he was just never on the field for offense again. Like, you make like the slightest mistake, and I understand like discipline and like, but there are so many players that made mistakes. Like, there's times where AJ Brown had like a false start, or forget about the offensive line, like all the penalties they've had. So like, if you're gonna just pull one guy for one mistake, like that's not a good way to go about things either, right? Like, there needs to be some type of a leash, especially for a guy that's clearly having a positive impact in that particular game. So going away from Tank Bigsby, going away from Cameron Latu, like the usage of personnel is something that I'm really excited to see with a new OC as well.
I agree. We won't be doing this this playing to not to lose, coaching not to lose nonsense, even though Sirianni argued against it. The clip of Jalen after the Rams game, rang so true. He said it at that point. He's like, we got to quit doing this playing not to lose thing. You saw our Eagles brand of football in that second half. Well, guess what?
Never saw it again.
He went the whole rest of the year, and it was the same thing. Bert with a 5. I've heard Mike McDaniel's name thrown around a lot. He killed Tua, so hard pass for me. I wouldn't mind Stefanski. Okay. Well, we're not the biggest Mike McDaniel supporters either for a couple of reasons, but different quarterbacks. I know they came from the same college or played together at the same time, but different quarterbacks in what they do. But I do hear you. There's lots of other options. Eric with a 2. What free agents do we re-sign? Jalen Phillips and Reed for me. Lots of questions there.
That's going to be another article that I'll put out probably in the coming days of kind of like a stay or go prediction for they have like 16, 17 free agents, maybe even more than that. And obviously Jalen Phillips, Reed Blankenship, Nakobe
Grant
Dean,
Calcaterra.
I might just have to leave him off the article just to for the sake of my sanity.
Just
right?
Not even there.
Like, just pretend he doesn't even exist.
Just hypothetically speaking, if we got an update, like a notification that said the Eagles have signed Grant Calcaterra, we might have to do like an alert live stream or like an impromptu one, just like to get your immediate reaction on that one. They brought him back,
but maybe with a different OC. I might give him a chance, but I don't want it to happen. But
anybody,
it's going to be interesting because I can honestly see a case where they don't re-sign any of them, right? And they just like move in different directions.
Yeah.
They think like they could have Drew Nakobe as their top safety, or sign or draft somebody else and just go young and cheap there, or they let Jalen Phillips walk and they say, listen, like, he was good, he wasn't like the greatest player in the world. Like, we don't think we have to give him $100 million contract or whatever he might get, like, with the injury concern or whatever. Like, we're good with just Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, and maybe they'll bring back Brandon Graham for nothing and draft somebody else on the edge. Like, you could make an argument that obviously with Nakobe Dean, they have Jahad Campbell in house already,
Yeah.
and Zach Bond's under contract. So you could make an argument to not bring back any of those guys, and I wouldn't think it would be that crazy. But
And you got Trot, which
obviously,
he can't even hardly see the field, but he's good whenever he goes out there. So
exactly. So if you're telling me that he's going to play like the Nakobe Dean role, where if Jahad Campbell's not looking great and you want to bring somebody in that's like could definitely beat a running back on a blitz, he's shown a great ability as a blitzer and kind of in run support where like coverage is kind of the question, which is the same thing as Nakobe Dean. I feel like they already kind of have that solution in house at linebacker. So with Jalen Phillips, it's just going to come down to what his market is because he played well, but they gave up a 3rd-round pick, so obviously you would like to keep somebody like that around. But at the same time, you're going to be signing Jordan Davis to a big contract. You're going to possibly be signing Jalen Carter to a big contract. Like they have all these other things that they have to take care of too, and they don't have a ton of cap space, so they're probably going to be moving on from some players that aren't expected to be free agents, right? Like I think they could save like $8 million, something like that, if they cut Michael Carter, which is an easy thing to assume, and Jake Elliott, what's going to go on with him. So there are moves up and down the roster outside of the guys that are definitely going to be free agents that are going to be kind of shake things up too.
yeah, all sorts of questions, and hopefully they bring back the right ones. We saw some instances this past year where it was like, oh boy, they don't have, even bringing back, eventually righting the wrong, I guess, in a way, of Fred Johnson and having some of that support for the right tackle, the swing tackle. But, Mekhi Becton would have been cool, would have been nice. Isaiah Rodgers, whatever the full true story was there, kind of sound like it was a mutual, a little bit more of a decision there of not a full on. The Eagles didn't offer at all, but still, we saw how that played out, and to have some of the depth that he brought would have been so much better and nicer than having a Jacorian Bennett, Keely Ringo. Although Adoree managed well enough, that wasn't the ultimate what doomed the Eagles. So we can certainly
He held
say
his
that.
own.
He did hold his own. We'll give him the credit
Shout out
there.
my guy Adoree.
That is true. Afraid with a 5. Cliff might get hired. The reason Cliff didn't get the job over Kellen Moore is he wanted to bring his own staff. Nick's scheme could be gone. Yes. Again, it wouldn't surprise us at all if he was brought in there, because he was one of the finalists. So Steve with a 10 strongly disagree with the assessment of Doug P during the Reich talk. One of the most analytics forwards in recent memory. Only Philly coach to keep a nerd in headset and took the dude with him to Jacksonville. That's fair for the disagreement, but if you read the article and the reasonings for all that transpired and his actually dislike of the analytics department weighing in on so many decisions, it's not that he didn't use analytics, it's the fact that he didn't agree necessarily all of the times that there's like an in-house analytics department, and then he can have his own personal guy that he trusts, but it was the Eagles organization that was essentially trying to say certain things that they will do, will not do, what they're trying to bring on board there. So I'm not saying that he wasn't or didn't use analytics. It was an organizational difference, I guess, if you want to call it that. But it came to a head, right? I mean, ultimately, he didn't want to let fire his guy. He didn't want to fire Press Taylor. And they said, cool, well, we're going to have to go ahead and part ways. So Andrew with a 5. Appreciate that. I don't know why anyone wants Cliff. He's primarily shotgun. Said this earlier. Uses almost zero motion. Monken, Daboll, or Reich should be offensive coordinator, if not Scheelhaas. So, Nate, Andrew's going with the wild card, which I mean, you could argue scared money don't make money, but that we don't necessarily know for sure. But that's fair. I do. Kind of like we were saying a second, we didn't say Reich, but Monken and Daboll, we were in agreement there over Cliff. Nathan with a 2. What's your opinion on AJ after this season? Oh boy.
So that's going to be like once they figure out the offense coordinator situation and whatever other coaching changes. Obviously, you'll shift your attention towards like free agency in the draft, but that AJ Brown question is still going to loom over everything, right? Like the fact that all season long, it seemed like there was questionable effort at times. Then he had like that conversation with Jeffrey Lurie. He had like a good stretch of games where he was dominant, wasn't saying anything. You didn't see any kind of dust ups. He was talking to the media. Then all of a sudden it was like when LeBron used to when he used to make the playoffs and he would have like going dark and he wouldn't be on social media, wouldn't AJ Brown just stopped talking to the media. Obviously after the playoff game, didn't talk to the media at the media, like the locker room clean out day. He left the jersey there for Quinyon Mitchell in the locker room, which almost seemed like a like a Batman kind of thing. Like he
It
would like
kind of
leave
did,
like
yeah.
his suit up, just like you, I know you guys are thinking of me, like I'm here, but I'm not here. You know, like
Hmm.
so. But then like the AJ Brown question when he was asked about, I mean, when Jalen Hurts was asked about AJ Brown, and he was like, oh, like I have a good relationship with him, like we're on good terms, whatever. But like, why don't you ask him? And then he smiled. Like that almost seemed to me like a subtle shot from Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown, where it's like he's not, he obviously knew he wasn't there to answer questions from the media, right? So it was
Yeah,
almost like
yeah,
him saying like you should ask him, but obviously he's not man enough, or however you want to phrase it, to be there. Like once again, you saw Devontae Smith stand in his locker, like not even fully changed yet, and answer all these questions, and then speak for AJ Brown and speak for these other guys, and talk about Kevin Patullo. It's like you're one of the highest paid players in the NFL. You need to you can't just talk when it's convenient for you, or talk when you want to say that you're not getting the ball.
yeah,
Like,
and especially after
you
those
need to
drops.
take the arrows too, right? Like Nick Sirianni literally went on the podium a couple years ago and like took responsibility for a play that you and Jalen Hurts kind of audibled and made up at the time, right? Like you got to have that same thing. Like you got to take those arrows and take that responsibility. But who, like, it seems like he's on his way out of Philadelphia, but at the same time, financially, with that dead cap hit, especially before June 1st, it's basically not feasible at all, right? So if you want to trade him, it would have to be after June 1st, which means you're not getting any draft picks this year. So do you want to move on from AJ Brown, and then you're not really reaping the benefits of moving on from one of the best receivers in the NFL until 2027? Like that's a
Yeah,
huge risk to take. That's going to come along with a ton of questions. So ideally, I think they bring in this offensive mind that's going to bring in their own established system, and they're going to try and get AJ Brown kind of mentally back into it that way, where it's like you got a fresh start. Maybe they'll keep him happy by making Kevin Patullo the wide receiver coach because he seemed to like him so much, and maybe that's like kind of the factor that'll reunite him with the and embrace this change at OC. Like, but I don't know. It seems like eventually he's going to be gone. It's just a matter of when it can feasibly happen.
yeah. It's I've looked at it from both sides, and you're right on that instance. It's the $20.1 million dead cap hit if it's before June 1st, and so again, you're talking about whether they get the draft pick or not. I remember the quote from Jeffrey Lurie earlier this year, middle of the year, sometime, and he was like, basically, we're not doing anything unless it benefits the Eagles. Because somebody was asked, about the rumors for AJ Brown. He's like, yeah, let me make this clear. We will not consider anything unless it benefits the Eagles in this organization. And that was kind of his way to tell AJ to get in line. It's like, look,
Yeah.
I don't know if you are frustrated or not. And if you're making this drama, you're building this up, you're bringing this upon yourself, upon us, this team, everything else. But regardless, you're here until we say that you're not here, right? And we're not going to make a decision just because maybe you do want out. And again, maybe. We're not saying for sure. But the way that Lurie said that was kind of like, we're still making this in terms of the best for this organization. So I can't imagine that it would be, let's go ahead and trade. I mean, unless it was because the 20 million dead cap. I mean, unless it was the craziest compensation that you could think of, like, hey, the team wants to offer, I don't know, 2 first-round picks or something, just something crazy. We're like, all right, well, let's figure out a way to eat that money. But even so, you're dealing with really constraints now with the money anyway. But then, again, maybe they can look at doing that. But otherwise, I do see it kind of like you played out. You get the offensive coordinator in there. You make some adjustments. If there is a little bit of a upset, frustration with AJ, maybe some time away would do him some good as well. Come back to it and go, look, it's a fresh start. You got a new offensive coordinator. We're getting this thing going. And maybe he's more bought in, or the vibes are better for whatever that means. But we'll see. Lots of questions for the offseason there. Phantom with a 2. Need to spread the ball more. Wide receiver 3 needs more passes, more balls. It's not been within this system. It could be potentially if we get a different guy, but we'll see. Like Anthony, you were saying, I mean, wide receivers coach, more development perhaps for guys that are not A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. You have some potential in Darius Cooper. We saw a couple throws in his direction. They like him. Johnny Wilson, We're hoping for a full recovery and him being able to get back for next season. Maybe there's something on that side. I think that he's going to help a decent amount in the running game. I think people discredit him at times as being a good, basically tight end out there who's lined up as receiver, but we'll see. We'll see how they get the wide receiver 3 involved. Darth with a 5. What is up with Fitz saying Patullo told him people are... Oh, I see Richard Sherman saying that Ryan Fitzpatrick... Yeah, Patullo told him people are hard on him, don't know the inner workings, and it's not his fault. LOL, glad he's gone. And then also followed that up saying any takes on Jason Vrabel from Green Bay. Takes Jason Vrabel from... I don't understand the... Is there any...
Is that a coach that I've never heard of?
Are we... Hang on. It is... See, this is like... Obviously, there's not going to be much on a take here because I'm having to figure out exactly wide receiver pass game coordinator for Green Bay. Okay. Well, I don't know.
Can't say. I mean,
I don't know much.
He didn't make my list of 21 offense coordinator candidates. You never know.
Yeah.
It could be a wild card out of nowhere, but I haven't seen any buzz around him like publicly either as far as like getting interviews. Maybe I just missed it. I don't know. But regarding the whole Richard Sherman, what Kevin Patullo told Ryan Fitzpatrick, like, to me, Richard Sherman like shouldn't have said that, in my opinion. I feel like that's information he got from like Fitzpatrick. That's not necessarily like your thing to go and share. And like it seemed like he was just trying to just kick a man while he was down, right? Like and he had a weird weekend and interactions with Eagles fans where he was saying that Quinyon Mitchell doesn't take the ball away, like he's not an all-pro corner or whatever.
Yeah,
and he literally had 2 interceptions. So odd week for Richard Sherman. I think that was kind of a clown move by him to call out Kevin Patullo and say what he may have, or maybe he didn't say. Like maybe he's kind of stretching the truth with what Ryan Fitzpatrick told him. Patullo said, because they did work together before when Fitzpatrick was playing. Patullo was one of his coaches. So I'm really not. I know that clip kind of went viral and people were saying like clowning Kevin Patullo for it, whatever. Like whatever did go on, you're going to hear stories all offseason now about, because guys and their agents or whoever are going to be trying to cover up what really happened and make their guy look good. So it's a tough situation overall. There's going to be stuff that comes out, but I don't think Richard Sherman necessarily went about it the right way.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, that feels like one of those conversations, because they're on the road all the time together, the prime cast, for the Thursday night football games and all that. It feels like something that, and it's just total speculation here, so who knows, but I'm just saying, like, my thought was kind of similar of like, that feels like something that they're sitting around before a production meeting or something like that, and Richard Sherman's like, hey, Fitz, like, KP, what's up? Like, why are they struggling so bad or something like that? And him just kind of a little one-off, like, yeah, man, he's frustrated because he's getting a lot of flack, and he's telling me, man, it's irritating because it's not all me. They keep on hating on me or whatever, and I'm just paraphrasing, but it feels like it could be something like that. And okay, sure, Sherman wasn't told maybe to say it or not to say it, but that's also like, you just kind of a one-off quick conversation, and then to go ahead and kick him while he's down. Again, he was not good. He had to be fired. He was not the right answer. We all understand that. But yeah, I was kind of like questioning too, like, okay, so I wonder if Fitz sees that. I mean, he's clearly had to have seen it by now, but I wonder if he sees that and goes, all right, Richard, that was not something that was supposed to be shared there,
He's like, I'm not telling you anything ever again.
Yeah. It's like, okay, it'd be interesting. But Kelly with the 2, appreciate that. Are all interviews disclosed? Yes, they will announce them as they happen at some point. Sometimes they're delayed. We will say that. It's not like it's immediate. We've had instances where, heck, I think there's been a couple that it was like a week or 2 after the fact, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, hey, the Eagles will interview with so-and-so, and then we're like, oh, all right, interesting. But, the big names will be super quick, because those are the agents obviously trying to get their publicity for their guy even more so. But yes, beat writers especially, we should get a list of all those as they start happening. So probably very soon we will get some names, some interviews, guys that the Eagles are bringing in for possibility. And who knows, will it be one of the names on Anthony's list. That may be an interesting.
If
prop
it's not,
bet
I'll
if
be
we
embarrassed.
could, right? Like, if Underdog wants to go ahead and throw that out there, is the next OC of the Philadelphia Eagles on Anthony DiBona's 21 list of candidates? If it's not, like, the no would have to be like plus 2,000, because you listed out 21 really good legit candidates, and if it's none of those, we're like, who was it? Oh, it was Jason Vrabel. Man, Darth Panda, if you get that correctly, it's Jason Vrabel.
Maybe that's Howie Roseman's burner account.
It could be. It's like, hey, any thoughts on Jason?
He's trying to see how Eagles fans would react to that name.
How it's judged, yeah. Well, we didn't pass the test there. That was like, who? What? Where is he at?
Mike Vrabel's brother? What's going on here?
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, but it's not spelled the same way. So I was like, I don't even know who that is. But okay. Well, you learn something new every day, and we just did. All right. I think that does it for us, though. We went a little longer than we normally do, but there's so much to cover and everything on that side. So we appreciate you guys. I mentioned this earlier in the video, the recap and kind of all of that, but I mentioned also on Twitter. But thank you guys for an unbelievable season. We're not going anywhere. Obviously, we got draft talk and free agency and draft talk and possibility of trades and draft talk and still coaching candidates and more draft talk. So we're going to be here. And you can see Anthony getting lit up even more so as I'm saying that, because the extreme emphasis. The mock drafts are going to be probably a lot of those very frequently, but could not do this without you guys. So gave away over 50 tickets this season, regular season and playoffs combined. So thank you for that. Y'all are the best. Over 152,000 subscribers. Last super chat here before we wrap up. Tom at the buzzer here, but the 2 says, how much say will Nick have on this offensive coordinator pick? 0.
It's gonna be
0.
It's gonna be like he's gonna find out when the rest of us find out. Probably they're gonna be like, we hired this guy. All right, cool. Like
they're gonna have like an interview coming out of a door, and you're like, hey Nick, this is your next offensive coordinator.
I could see them like bringing in, say, whoever, Cliff Kingsbury into the NovaCare complex. Like he's walking, Howie and Jeffrey Lurie meet him at the door. They walk upstairs. They go into like a meeting room, and like Nick Sirianni's walking along, and they just shut the door in his face. Like, no, you're not part of this interview. We're handling this.
We don't need you here.
We'll let you know who your OC is. So yeah, I don't think they'll probably try and make it look like he played some type of factor. Like he's gonna say, oh, like, yeah, that's my decision, or we spoke about it. It was a group process, whatever. But we all know, just like the Kellen Moore situation, there was no previous kind of relationship between Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni. Like this is going to be very clearly Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie decision.
Yep. And you can kind of look at it from both ways, and that'll be the interesting part of it. Sometimes you could say, oh, well, they have a relationship with Sirianni, so maybe it is a good thing. But I kind of lean towards the non-relationship, like you just brought up there with the Kellen Moore aspect, because it, in a way, kind of helps to have a completely different voice and someone who doesn't feel like they owe Sirianni anything, because they just come in and like, look, man, I'm trying to just do something for myself here. Like, I want us to win, but this is me and my offense, the way that I call plays, and I'll hear you, but we don't know each other really at all. So yeah, I'm not doing anything for it.
Like, also Sirianni might not feel as comfortable going up to them and being like, listen, you should do this. Like, if he's meeting a guy for the first time, working with him for the first time, you're not going to be.
Yeah, he's not going to be like, he's like, hey, have you heard of this hitch route? Yeah. That's a really good play.
Oh my God, that's ironically enough.
Any more of those.
That was a Kellen Moore thing. He was the one that kind of introduced that.
That's true. That's the problem.
Kevin Patullo did.
They fell in love with it. They're like, wow, this is a revelation here. We could run these hitch routes. Just spam them nonstop. Who needs a crosser? Oh, hopefully that'll get a change. It should. So we're optimistic. Again, appreciate you guys. Make sure to go check it out. Anthony's one there on the PhillySpecialShow.com. Also follow Anthony at DiBona NFL. I'm at the PHI Special. Not as active on Twitter, but feel free to give a follow there as well. And more videos, news, everything else to come. We won't be going anywhere. But as always, go Birds.
Go Birds.